Hi, I'm Joe Basile, and welcome to the Weekly D. A lot of exciting things happen at the OTC. As always, you can check out all things that are going on at the OTC by going to otc.la or olivetreecommunity.com, whichever you prefer, otc.la. But a lot of cool things happening there, and part of what's been going on is we've been talking about preparation. The OTC is about to change buildings. We're about to move on September 4th, about 6 blocks away, still staying in Brentwood. And the process and the thought has been is like we should be talking about being prepared. And so last week, we were talking about being prepared for a work of God or a movement of God. And we were looking at Joshua. And it was pretty cool because last week, on Sunday, I was looking at Joshua chapter 2 into chapter 3. And it's basically talking about is that the people, Israel, needed to prepare themselves. They needed to consecrate themselves for God was going to do something great. So it wasn't this consecrate yourself and then God will. It wasn't an if-then situation. It's consecrate yourself for God is going to do something great. So you need to consecrate yourself in preparation because God is going to do this great thing. And we're looking at that in terms of the OTC, about consecrating ourselves, about what God is doing. And so continuing on, I've been looking at this week, I'm looking at Joshua 5. So what happened was this amazing thing is it said God's going to do this amazing thing among the Israelites. And what he did is he dried up the river so that the Israelites could cross over. And it was pretty cool, and it had such an effect. The water actually piled up in a heap near a town called Adam, all the way down to the Dead Sea. And the Canaanite kings and the Amorite kings saw this and heard about this. I mean, obviously it was the talk like what was going on with the river. They saw the army crossing over, and their hearts were struck with fear, and their hearts melted, and they couldn't even face the Israelites. And so it was this kind of thing, this God does this amazing thing among the Israelites, and part of that is just melting the hearts of their enemies. And so God kind of does the first act. He goes, I want to make a statement. I want to let you know I am for you. And so we're kind of looking at this in our lives, that God makes these same statements to us, to you. A lot of times we're just not looking for them, but God does these amazing things in your life, and we just kind of, chalk it up as, of course that's what happens. I'm amazing. I'm great. I deserve these things. I'm just so lucky. But the reality is God often does these amazing acts in your life, and he's making statements to you and to me, saying, I'm for you. I am for you. And the other thing is like maybe your local church or whatever community. At the OTC, we're a community, and for the last 3 years, we've been making statements to our people and to the community around us that we are for you. We are for you. God is for you. We are for you. Look at our actions. Look at our books. Look at the way how we spend our money and how we serve. We are for you. And so that's what's kind of going into this. God has made this I am for you statement. And we're going to pick it up in Joshua chapter 5, verse 1. It said, now when the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanite kings along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until we had crossed over, their hearts melted, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites. Just a small piece of authenticity of this passage here. Like you always wonder, who made up these stories? The writer here accidentally messes up the proper grammar and slips into we. And personalized and ownership and was ego invested because they were there. And so it shows that this is a regular person telling a story. This isn't a perfectly drafted, phony story. This is a person telling a story and trying to do it from an objective perspective, trying to talk about the Israelites. But in the midst of their talking about it, says we. That's a common thing you're doing when you're telling a story and you're trying to be objective, but you were there and you saw it and you were a part of it. And so that's what's happening here. It's the same thing. They slip into being ego invested because they were there. It's actually something you look and say, this is authentic. This really happened. Verse 2. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again. Well, if you're a man, the first thing you're saying is again. There's nothing extra. I don't know what this again stuff is all about. Once. It's a one-time deal. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath Haraloth. And so let me just explain, because I'm not going to have a chance to go through all this passage. Again, what he means by again, he goes on and explains that later on in verses 4 and further. He basically is saying is that, again, meaning there are boys who become men while they were in the desert, and they were never circumcised. And so he's saying, again, meaning it's really for the first time for a lot of them, for these boys who became men and the boys at the same time. Typically, what's supposed to be done is on the 8th day of the birth of a Hebrew child, is that they're supposed to be circumcised at that point. But the Hebrews go into the desert, and they did not perform circumcision while they were in the desert. And so now the men who were born and who were circumcised as babies have now died, and then we have these new boys, and they haven't been circumcised yet. And so this is what's going on here. And I love us as Americans to be like, yeah, sure, oh yeah, be circumcised, right on, that's what you do. These are men. These are boys. This isn't baby circumcision where you're never going to remember it again. This is adult. This is where you say, you want me to cut off the end of my what? What? So God performs this great act, this amazing act. It's this a statement of, I am for you. I am for you. And so then he says, now remember the covenant we've made. In this covenant, I say I am for you, and then you have an act that says you are for me. And this act of this covenant, this symbol of the covenant, is circumcision. And to ease the difficulty of this, you do this as a child. But now, I'm asking you to do this as men, the same way I asked of Abram, before I called him Abraham in the Abrahamic covenant. And now I say, do this now. And in fact, and people don't like this, it makes people uncomfortable, they don't want to talk about this, cutting off the excessive skin at the end of a man's penis. But God's not embarrassed of it. In fact, he says it's so important and so significant in this act of courage of these men and these boys that they would do such a thing and make such a statement back to the Lord that they are for him, that we're going to name this place Gibeath Haraloth, which means Hill of Foreskins. The Hill of Foreskins isn't to be gross, it isn't to be ashamed. It's a pride statement that these men would do such things for the Lord. God said he's for us, and we are willing to cut off the ends of our junk, the excess skin, because we are for him. We are for him. And so the question for you today, and the question that I pondered, God says to me often that he is for me. Am I for him? The OTC has made statements to me and my family that they are for me. Am I for them? So right now what we're going to do is take a break, put me on pause, and you can ask yourself, what is God like? What should I be like? And what verse is speaking? Remember those three things. Text them, tweet them, Facebook status them, whatever it is, but a place where you can reference them over and over again. All right, let's do this. All right, welcome back. Well, what stands out to me is verse 3, and says, so Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath Haraloth. And what stands out to me is that God asks great things of us. He does great things, but also asks great things of us. This wasn't a punishment, it was an honor. He had done something amazing. And the thing he asked wasn't small. It was amazing as well. So much so that he thought this place needs to be named because I've asked so much of you. And you said yes. You said I'm worth it. You said to the Lord, yes, God, I will do these things. God asks a lot of us. And what I want to do, and what I'd be like, is I want to live my life. I want to consecrate. Remember saying they had to consecrate themselves? Well, they're wondering, what am I consecrating myself for? What am I selling myself apart for? They found out. This is why they needed to consecrate themselves, because God did something great and thought awesome. But then he asked of them something great, and only a person who was setting themselves apart for God would say yes to such an insane thing. Such an insane thing. And so I want to consecrate myself to God in such a way that God would ask me of great things. So God asked me of great things, and I'm hoping that I set my life apart in a way that he's willing to ask me, and then I say yes. Thanks for joining me for the Weekly D. We'll see you this Sunday at the OTC at 10 a.m. If you can't be there, you can check us out on iTunes or at otc.la. You can always check the podcast or the vodcast, all that. And this week we'll continue on. Be prepared. God will do great things among you.